Welcome to lesson 6 of the full course, How to Win Architecture Competition. In this lesson, we're going to look at Rayon's integrated AI tools and explore how they can support your architecture competition workflow. I'll show you how to generate AI images in Rayon and discuss how these could support the early conceptual and ideation stages of your project, or help strengthen the visual communication of your competition entry. This is a quick and efficient addition to your workflow, allowing you to turn ideas or even finalized drawings into clear visualizations within minutes. You're welcome to follow along with the class by creating a free Rayon account using the link below or jumping into the template from the description. Okay, welcome to lesson 6. In this lesson, we're going to explore how to use Rayon's integrated AI tools to support the development of your architectural competition entry and assist at multiple stages of the design process, especially now how AI has become so prominent and prevalent within the industry. It is a fantastic tool to integrate into your drawing process. So architectural competitions reward innovation, creative thinking, and forward-looking methodologies, AI being one of them. And so these qualities shouldn't only be visible in the final boards, but should also be reflected in how you develop your project. And so using AI will allow you to work smarter, be more efficient, explore more ideas more quickly, and push creative boundaries with confidence. And that is the way that I think we should envision AI and the integration of AI in our workflow. Is it's not a replacement of our drawing process. It is purely a supplementation, a tool that will help us become more efficient and think of ideas and generate ideas much quicker. So whether you're working independently or as part of a team, AI has become an essential tool for producing more compelling, polished, and innovative competition submissions. And I'll show you in Rayon how you can use that as part of your kind of team's workflow when putting together a competition entry. So Rayon's AI panel is designed to support end-to-end workflow. So at the very early stages in the ideation and the conceptualization, all the way through to producing some kind of final renders, some AI generated renders as part of your competition boards, which I will talk through. So you don't need to leave Rayon in any capacity. Everything is here, ready for you to use all in one place. And this avoids fragmented processes and significantly improves efficiency, of course. So with Rayon's AI integration, you can generate 3D axonometric views directly from your drawings. You can apply visual styles such as realistic clay or watercolor. You can prompt accurate material, colors, and atmospheres. And you can also create competition-ready visuals, including 3D maps and presentation graphics. And because this is a competition context, the outputs won't necessarily always be highly detailed or fully accurate or finished kind of outputs. Instead, these tools are best for high-level ideation, exploration, and visual communication. And so I'll show you how to integrate them effectively into your workflow. So the tools we're going to focus on in this lesson are the generate image, the generate tracing, the generate product, the stylizing, and the generate axonometric. So let's dive into it. On the left hand side here, you'll see the AI chat, which you can select, and that will pop open this tool here. Now you'll see here that you'll already kind of get some prompts or some questions to kind of help you along the way. But to talk you through it, what you have here is obviously you have a text box where you can actually ask Rayon directly for your prompts. And then you can do add content and tools. So the way that this works, the way that Rayon AI is set up, is that fundamentally you have two options. You can either add a file, so an already pre-existing image that you might have saved, or already a drawing that you've exported out of the software, or you can add a screenshot. Now from my experience, adding the screenshot is much quicker and efficient because you can kind of work within your model canvas and work within the space and just kind of take some snips and images from various drawings or whatever you're trying to generate. You then have all your tool options here at the bottom, as I just mentioned: the generate image, generate tracing, generate product, stylize, and create your axonometric, which is a really clever tool to help produce some more kind of communication material for your submissions. And so the first tool I'm going to show you is going to be generate image. And so what you'll have to do here is select generate image, and you'll see that it almost applies to your prompt. And then if you want to add the content, you could do add screenshot. Now, for argument's sake, let's zoom in on a certain element on our elevation and let's try and render it. So if we just go like this, take a snip of that zone, and then you'll see the file is added there. And then I'm going to prompt it to do create render of this elevation. So it's going to generate the image, apply it to that screenshot, and then follow the prompt. Really straightforward. Click send, and then you'll see that it just goes through a process of thinking about it, working it through, generating the image. And as you can see here, the image has been generated, which you can then preview, which looks pretty compelling. So it's obviously converted those hatches that I have applied. So the coarse stone and then the more brick stone applied. It's generated that into a more realistic color palette. Also with the kind of shadows and the trees, etc., which is all quite convincing actually. So then you then have two options here. So you can either then reuse it, you can download that image, you can reuse that image. For example, if you click that, it will come back down and add it back to your prompt. So for example, if you want to prompt it further, you can reuse that, or you can insert image into your canvas and then it will drop into here. So let's just pull that down here. And so I think the way that I want to communicate my drawings for this competition board is going to be in a very similar tone to the elevation sections and plans as communicated here. So kind of black and white, quite a detailed architectural drawing feel. And so the render isn't quite working at this stage. So if I select this image, I can then do use selected image. I'm then going to go down to tools. I'm going to do stylize, and then I'm going to do a clay model. So this is a really key tool that you can use to almost take one of your images or take a snip of an elevation or section that you've created, and you can then stylize that into watercolor, clay model, hand sketch, render, or wireframe. In this case, I'm going to do a clay model, as you'll see here. Send that off, and then that will convert that image, that selected image, into a clay model, which you can see has just been generated here. And I think that looks really great. I think that looks fantastic, and the way that it's kind of embedded it into the landscape as well, and showing the trees. Yes, it looks kind of snowy. It looks like there's kind of snow on the trees, which you can then, one thing that you can do then is once you insert that image into your canvas, and let's just scale that up slightly, you can then actually make some slight edits to it. So once you select the image, you can head over to the right hand side here. I very briefly touched upon these earlier, but you could like remove the background, for example, to make it all a kind of white background. But one thing you can do is you can select the image, go down to filters, and then you can adjust the exposure slightly. You can adjust the contrast slightly and the saturation. So I quite like to make it black and white. So I'll drop the saturation right down. I'm going to set the contrast to 0, but I'm going to make this potentially a touch whiter. Do 0.02. And that's actually a really compelling image that I can now add into my competition board in the next lesson. And this is really fantastic at an early stage if you have done a kind of quick concept sketch and you can't quite visualize how that would look in 3 dimensions, or how it would look if you start applying some materiality to that. You can then prompt it in Rayon, as I've done here, to generate the image, and that will really be a great way of you testing your ideas and testing different ideas that you kind of have, and exploring them in a realistic tone. And so this is really quite compelling, and I'm happy with how that's come out there. Now to go to the next tool, it's going to be generate tracing. So I could even select this image again. You could use selected image, go to tools, generate tracing, and this will essentially then convert this drawing into a vector drawing. Now this will really take me back to the elevation that I initially kind of prompted it to change into a render. But this is a really handy way of, for example, if you had a precedent study that you wanted to add into your competition board, or you had a render that you've done that you want to then just kind of add a bit of a style to, or convert into a drawing again, you can then generate it into a vector image. So you can then make some changes and edits to it, for example here. And even so, this gives it quite a kind of sketchy feel, which is an alternative style that you could also add and apply to your competition boards. For example, if I wanted to create a trace of this particular image here, select use select image, go to tool, go to generate tracing, which you can see here, generated it into a bit of a sketch, which, as I say, handy for precedent analysis. Now, the next tool is going to be a generate product. Now, I briefly touched upon this in lesson 3, I believe, when I was showing you how you could potentially import some furniture and turn them into blocks that you can then apply into your models. And I'm going to very quickly do another demonstration of that. And I'm actually going to test it a little bit further and choose something that might be quite complicated to generate. And that's going to be the Watersley chair. So I'm going to just take this image. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in here, get it down a touch. Now, what I'm going to do, once again, select use selected image. And remember, if you already had an image saved, you could do add files or you could do add a screenshot. Go to tools and do generate product. Now, this is going to convert it. Now, this is still kind of thinking at the moment, which is why. And then I'm going to generate that into a block. Now, because this is quite a complicated image and obviously quite a complicated piece of furniture, I'm actually intrigued to see how they will pick up on these lines and generate the block from this particular piece of furniture. But it's really clever in how it will now generate a floor plan, so a top view, a side view, and a front view of this particular block. And it will do this for any type of furniture or any type of door or window that you want to import into the model. It creates a block out of that image that you can then prompt to generate the product. So it's a really handy tool to use if you don't have a particular furniture in the block library. You can find a furniture that you want to import from a particular client or from a particular brand or whatever it might be, and it can generate the block for you. And it'll take a little moment to generate it. As you can see, it's working it through here. So there they've been generated. So you can import the block family, and that will import it into the block library, and then you can insert the block family, which you can see down here. So this is your top view. You can then go into your side view and the front view. I think that's actually they've done a good job there of converting that. And the detailing of the lines work really well. Now, the next tool, as I very kind of already touched upon with converting this image into a clay model, I'm going to just show you some various other styles as well. So we could maybe stylize this into a watercolor, which actually is really impressive. And then if you wanted to, you could prompt that to maybe change some of the tones of greens or stone. But I actually think that works really, really well. You could either then change that to, so if we wanted to then reuse that image again, and we change that to a hand sketch, works really well, very compelling. This particular is actually really, really nice. So I'm actually going to insert that image. And we could use that as an option with our competition boards. And then the other style options is going to be a render. I'm going to use a selected image. I'm intrigued what's going to happen if I render an already rendered image. Okay, wow, that has really rendered it. Which is very realistic. That's brilliant. And then the final style that I will very briefly touch upon is going to be the wireframe. And that has come out as kind of expected as a wireframe. So they're the kind of different options that you have available for you with the styling. And you can also, once again, prompt it to potentially do a different style, although that will require a bit of refinement because, of course, working with AI always requires a bit of refinement. And to reprompt and rework into it. But considering you could just click a button here and change a style to a clay model or a sketch, this is really impressive and it works really well. Now, the final item I'm going to show you, the final tool, is going to be creating an axonometric. So this will just create an axonometric view from a scene, floor plan, or section. And I think from my experience working in this works particularly well when you do a section. So you can get a bit of a kind of perspective section, an axonometric perspective section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do add screenshot of this section here. I'm then going to apply the generate axonometric. So you can see here that it's thought about it and it's created an axonometric view here, which is really compelling. I think it looks really good. It looks fantastic. Obviously, some of the details it won't be aware of because you can't see it in the view, and so certain elements will be kind of poking out and extending when they might not be needing to. But I'm going to then use that view, that image. I'm going to then create it into a clay model to get something like this, which I think looks really great. and we could potentially then prompt it. Some of the windows look a bit odd. We could reprompt it to say, I don't know, edit to full height windows, make facade full windows. And we'll come out the other end with something like this, with the full height windows across the front here, which looks a lot more convincing. And you can see in here, they've actually shown some of the workshops and worktops in there. So yeah, this is a really brilliant way of turning a bit of a section or an elevation into an axonometric, just to add some additional images to your competition boards. I think it comes out really well as a clay model, as a kind of clay looking model. We could even remove some of those, the border. Let's just do remove border around image, as we won't be needing that when we put it on the competition boards, to get something like this, no border, which we can then add to our competition boards. I'm going to do a few more of these and test some of these ideas. So in the next lesson, you will see a few that are going to be added to the presentation board. But as you can see here, this is a really quick and easy way, and there's lots of tools that you can use to generate certain images and generate certain products or styles or different types of views and drawings that you want to add to your presentation boards. Obviously, with AI, it requires a bit of reprompting and a bit of reworking. And so a really great way of exploring these ideas is to use images that you already have or materiality that you want to add to your certain drawings. For example, we could even, for argument's sake, add a stone finish to this clay model. If we wanted to go for a rendered look, we could then insert this image, add selected, and let's see what this does. And so while this hasn't quite come out as we anticipated, we didn't want the whole thing to be covered in stone, but you get the point in that you could potentially use, if you're struggling to prompt the AI, you can use materials as references to apply a certain material to your images. This would be probably particularly useful if we went all the way back to this elevation here. If we wanted to add that specific material to this elevation, we could always prompt it to do that. And so you can also adjust tones and contrast or texture for consistency across boards. As I've mentioned over here, you can adjust the tones and exposure to your images. So when used thoroughly, AI becomes a really powerful extension to your design process. Not a shortcut, of course, but a almost like an accelerator to your creative process, which works, I think, fantastically well. And you have lots of options here in Rayon. So now we've explored some AI tools and how you can generate some images and help you communicate your ideas. I'm now going to jump into lesson 7, the final lesson, to talk how we can build our competition boards and start using some of these tools and images that we've generated as part of our competition boards. So I'll catch you in that lesson.